back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And what is going on, full-time family? It is time to break down and predict Bellator 216, which is going down this Saturday, February 16th. On the same night, I believe, as UFC, because there's a double header for Bellator this weekend. There's going to be Bellator on Friday and Bellator on Saturday. This is going to be, I believe, probably the most popular Bellator card because the headliner is, of course, Paul Daley versus Michael Venom Page, a fight that fans around the world have been waiting for a long time, especially in the UK. That's going to be a great fight, a striking affair between Michael Page and Paul Daley. Also, Czech Congo versus Vitaly Minakov. Roy Nelson versus Marko isn't even the co-main event. How wild is that? Bellator, this could be a main event of a Bellator card, and it's the third fight on the card, so that says, actually, in my opinion, a lot about these two fights. Michael Venom Page, Paul Daley, we know that's huge. Czech Congo versus Vitaly Minakov. Make sure you keep your eye on that fight. That's going to be a good one as well. So we got Marko versus Roy Nelson. Yaroslav Amosov versus Eric Silva, coming over from the UFC, stopped by the LFA, and now he's in Bellator. And then, of course, Valerie Laredo versus Colby Fletcher, which is where we will start these breakdowns and predictions. Let's get straight into it for this fight. Valerie Laredo is one of Bellator's brightest WMMA prospects. Not only is she a dime piece, but she's also got some skills. She has a background in Taekwondo and now has been training with the American Top Team ahead of her pro MMA debut, which is one of the best fight teams in the world. So I'm hoping Bellator is going to be wise with this girl's matchmaking in the beginning of her career, because if given time, I think she can become a serious, well-rounded contender training over there at American Top Team, and I think they are if you look at her opponent's record. She's 1-2, so definitely a winnable fight for Valerie Laredo. Not much to break down there. I'm picking her to get the W. Moving on, Yaroslav Amosov versus Eric Silva. Eric Silva is a 15-fight UFC veteran that left the UFC on a 2-fight losing streak, but bounced back with a win over 12-3 Nick Barnes in the LFA before signing with Bellator. Yaroslav Amosov is undefeated at 20-0, and he's only 25 years old. He hasn't been fighting UFC caliber competition throughout his career, fighting for the TKFC in the Ukraine, so this is a super tough fight for me to call. I'm going to go with the UFC veteran Eric Silva. Let me move the green check mark. I realized I didn't do that for the Valerie Laredo fight. My bad. Got a little into my notes. I'm going with Eric Silva to win this fight. I think, for me, the strength of schedule is hard to ignore. Despite the recent losses for Eric Silva in the UFC, he lost to some of the best fighters in the world, the Jordan Maines. You know, he's literally been fighting killers in the UFC. Didn't go his way, but the fact that he was fighting that higher level competition compared to some of the guys Yaroslav Amosov has fought gives him the slight nod for me. But Yaroslav is slightly younger. He's 25 years old to Eric Silva's 34, so I mean that's a slight advantage sometimes, but it's not like Eric Silva's like completely out of his prime or something for it to be a huge advantage for Yaroslav Amosov. And yeah, the strength of schedule for me gives Eric Silva the nod, so that's who I'm picking to win the fight. Moving on, we've got Marko versus Roy Nelson. I know a lot of people are going to be tuning into this fight. Marko 44 years old, Roy Nelson 42. Marko is currently riding a 9-fight winning streak dating back to 2014. He's fought his last 6 fights for Risen after beating Gabriel Gonzaga in the UFC. He's going to be rematching Roy Nelson, who he lost to in the UFC back in 2011 via 3rd round TKO. Both of these guys are MMA legends. Despite their success in the sport, they are two of the most iconic heavyweights to ever do it. Marko Krokop's devastating left high kick has left more than a few heavyweight fighters crashing to the canvas, and Big Country's heavy-set, heavy-hitting style is always fun to watch. It's hard for me to pick this fight because while Krokop has been on a win streak over in Risen, Roy Nelson has been fighting some tough SOBs over here in Bellator and the UFC before that. Also, Roy Nelson won the first fight, so that being said, I'm going to give the edge to the slightly younger Roy Nelson. And I know you're not going to hear that very often with him being 42 years old, but he is the younger fighter in this fight. He won the first fight, and I feel like he's also been fighting higher level competition more recently, so I'm going with Big Country Roy Nelson to get the W over Marko Krokop. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening. Tough fight. I can't wait for this card. I'm gonna have to be double boxing it. I gotta watch the UFC, Cain Velasquez versus Ngannou, and these Bellator fights. They're gonna be on around the same time. I'm really looking forward to these fights. In this fight here, I'm picking Vitaly Minakov to get the W over Czech Congo. Vitaly Minakov is undefeated at 21-0, coming back to Bellator after going 7-0 in Fight Nights Global. He's not only already beat Czech Congo once in his career, but also some other impressive wins on his resume, such as Alexander Volkov, Josh Copeland, Antonio Silva, and Tony Johnson. Czech Congo is 9 years older than Minakov at 43, but he's coming off 2 first-round KOs over Javi Ayala and Timothy Johnson, and now Czech Congo's riding a 7-fight winning streak of his own. So this is a tough fight to call because Czech Congo has looked great even at this age, and both guys have been fighting decent competition. I'm picking Vitaly because not only is he undefeated, but he's beat Congo before, and also he was able to finish a common opponent, Tony Johnson, in the second round, who took Czech Congo to a decision. So with that being said, I'm going to give the edge to Vitaly Minakov. Now it's time to get to the fight that everybody's really here for, the main event of the evening. Michael Venom Page, MVP, versus Paul Simtex Daley. Yo, this is gonna be a banger. I'm talking about this fight could probably, I'm sure UK fans would pay to watch this fight probably if it was on a pay-per-view. That's how big I think this fight is for UK MMA fans. Paul Daley, Michael Page. I mean, the only way this fight could get any bigger is if you made fucking Michael Bisping the special guest referee, right? But no, this is going to be a great fight, a stand-up fight, probably going to be a banger in that sense. But also, there's the fucking chess match potential. Neither one of these guys is going to be looking to take this fight to the ground. No one's going to be looking to shoot for a takedown, although it would be wise. I mean, it would be so wise. We've seen Holly Holm do it with Megan Anderson. Instead of just striking and standing up, we're both good stand-up fighters. How about, since I know you can't wrestle, I just take you down the whole fight? So if one of these fighters has been able to mix any sort of grappling into their game, Paul Daley has 50 fucking fights, almost 60 fucking pro MMA fights. He should be able to mix a takedown into his game by now. If he can mix it up and take Michael Page down, not only would it shock everybody because no one expects grappling out of this fight, but also it would be a great game plan, a great strategy. Michael Page doesn't do the best against grapplers. That's not his game. He's a very exciting stand-up fighter. He likes to dance on you. He's more similar to an Israel Adesanya in the sense of he's more of a showman. Somebody said this about the Adesanya Silva fight, all show, no go. I kind of see what they were saying because Anderson Silva was sitting there, 43-year-old Anderson Silva just sitting there begging you to come forward and fight him, and you're like, nah, I'm cool. What? Okay. So Michael Venom Page is a guy that likes to dance in the octagon, but he also, I think, will be a little more aggressive if he feels like he has that striking advantage. Against somebody like Paul Daley, Anderson Silva, you do have to be careful because they can knock you out. So that could turn this fight into a potential chess match, which, isn't always the most exciting thing for the fans to watch, but that's just one possibility. The other possibility is these guys, this is a grudge match. These guys don't like each other. These guys are both stand-up fighters. They could come in here and this could be just an amazing fight to watch. And it's going to be interesting to see who would get the advantage in this fight. It just stand up considered. I mean, that's really how I think I'm going to make my prediction for this fight, because even though I think it would be fucking like an awesome game plan and hilarious if Paul Daley came in here and mixed in some takedowns, that would just be so funny. Like, considering especially, right, he fought John Fitch, who held him down, and he just did not like that shit at all. What if he came in here and did that to MVP? Like, I think that would actually like make me laugh. That would be so funny. But other than that, if this fight stays standing, which I think it will, I'm actually going to give the edge to Michael Venom Page. I think he's going to be the better striker, the better pure striker. Paul Daley has grown accustomed to fighting a lot more MMA. So with his 60 MMA fights, he's had to incorporate grappling defense into his natural fight mechanics, regardless of who he's fighting. Even if he's not fighting John Fitch, he's always got to be prepared for a takedown in these 60 MMA fights. Compared to Michael Venom Page, who's a lot more familiar with just standing up and smacking dudes, kicking dudes, punching dudes, dancing on dudes. His background was, I believe, in like sport karate. I mean, I became a huge fan of Michael Venom Page after seeing some of his highlights. He's really good at making highlights. But when you look a little more into it, yeah, the grappling for any exciting striker is not going to be their strong suit. So if this fight stays standing, I like Michael Page's chances, and I like the chances of this fight to stay standing. So I'm going to give the edge to Michael Venom Page. We'll be looking forward to this fight. It's a great fight, great main event for a Bellator doubleheader, which finally here. And it's also a fight in the welterweight Grand Prix. These guys are in the tournament. Winner advances in the welterweight Grand Prix. And it's ultimately the winner will have to fight for the title in the finals. Loser of this fight gets bounced out of the Grand Prix. Can't wait to see what happens here. I'm giving this slight edge to Michael Venom Page. It is what it is, man. That's my breakdown and predictions for Bellator 216. Now I got to get to work on the UFC fight night for this weekend. So with that being said, if you haven't yet, make sure you smash the thumbs up button on this video. It would be much appreciated. Let the Full Time family know what you think in the comments, and what are your predictions for Bellator 216. I'm out.
Bye, Felicia.